Howdy everyone. Okay, so obviously I've got the aileron now in place. A couple of things I want to point out. So here's an example of the notes that I had taken, if you will, for when I had originally fitted the aileron, the flap, and the wing to the fuselage. When I did all my rigging, I made note of how I had the spacers and the brackets and the different washers in these locations here. So you can see I've got a nut, a thin washer, and then in between here is a fat washer. On this side are two fat washers and then a heavy washer and a nut. That sequence is basically drawn out something like this. Now this is not the exact one, obviously, because there's a big spacer right here. This orientation is for that other hinge point over there. But anywho, I had done this when everything was assembled and rigged and attached to the airplane so that when I put it back together, it will be in the same spot. If you get the washers on the hinge points in a different order, or if you use all thin instead of fat or whatever, it's ever so slightly going to shift the aileron in relation to the wing. And if you do that, when you fit the wing tip here, this aileron is going to be in a different orientation. So, like I said, I had everything rigged. I used my notes. I put everything back together, just like my notes had said, with the appropriate washers and spacers in the appropriate locations. So now this aileron is back in place exactly where it was when I had done the rigging. So now I can start fitting the wingtip to the wing and also to the aileron here. So I've already trimmed the tip, like I had said, around the perimeter. So I know that that will now fit up underneath here without any interference. But I know that I'm going to have to start trimming this back here. So that's what I'm going to do next. I'm going to try to fit the wingtip as best I can and then start trimming the wingtip around this area here, trimming it back so that I can get it pushed in all the way to start marking these hole locations to it. You also see that I've got some padding in here. This towel basically goes up between this part here. This is where the aileron will swing. And I don't want the aileron to come down and strike this edge of the wing skin, this edge here. If this swings down, this edge, the whole length of the aileron is going to damage the vinyl. So I've got a towel run up through there just so this will never make contact with this sharp edge. And I also do this with a rag balled up underneath right here. That will help hold the aileron in the proper orientation when I get the wing fitted and I'm trying to match up the trailing edges. I got to get this in position with the wingtip itself. Of course, I'm not there yet, but just a note, if hopefully you don't already have your aileron painted, but in my case, I do, so I had to make sure I padded it. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start fitting wingtip and try to trim this back here so I can get it in place so I can start marking holes. All right, talk to you guys later. All right, so obviously I'm starting the very initial stages of fitting the wingtip to the wing, and all I've been doing is basically trimming this interface here between the wingtip and the aileron. You want the flange, the molded flange that's on the wingtip, to tuck up underneath the skin nice and tight. The further away from the skin that wingtip flange comes out, you're not going to have very good edge distance for these holes on the wingtip. So if you can imagine that flange being underneath the skin, obviously if you bring the wingtip out like this, you're going to lose this edge distance. So you want that molded in flange tucked up underneath here nice and tight. In order to do that, you have to start trimming around the aileron bracket and here for the aileron itself. You just want to trim enough that you can get that flange tucked up underneath the skin all the way. You don't want to take too much off of here because you want to come back and open up these gaps just enough for clearance, and you want them to be nice and straight and clean. So for now, just trim enough that it's not, the wingtip is not interfering with the aileron, it's not interfering with this bracket, and you can get it tucked up underneath the skin nicely. You have to do that on this. This is actually the bottom of the wing, and you also have to do it for the top of the wing as well. This here, this edge here, you have to cut back, trim back the wingtip just enough so that this edge doesn't interfere with the aileron, and you can tuck that flange up underneath this skin. So that's basically what I've been working on. This entire wingtip can be held in place quite firmly with a single cleco. So I've also been playing with the front of the wingtip, again, where it tucks up underneath the skin of the wing. Just cleaning that out so I can get it brought forward to nest inside of this leading edge nice and cleanly as best I can. And then making sure that it's in all the way and it's forward all the way. I was able to put at least one cleco in, match drill it, put the cleco in just to hold it. And that helps to work on those edges in the back that I had just talked about. If you can get a cleco in, if you can get some of this tucked in enough to get a cleco in, you can start marking the back where you need to trim it to get it to come in and sit real clean. So I'm going to do some more fiddling. On the other wingtip, I was not happy with the way that the wingtip fit around this leading edge. This one is looking a little better, but it's still a little bit of a problem. It's just not a perfectly clean fit. It's not the end of the world. I'm not there yet, but I'll deal with that when I have to. So for now, I'm able to get the wingtip all the way on. Nothing is interfering. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start match drilling and putting the holes in the wingtip itself so I can cleco the whole thing into place. And then after that, I'm going to have to start making spacers for this front area. If you remember this front area, it's got this outer fiberglass, and then it's got that inside flanged fiberglass that your lights mount to. And for now, those are two separate pieces that move around. So I'm going to have to shim that so that I can attach everything together. And I'll get to that later. For now, I'm just going to do some match drilling and try to get all these clecos in on the bottom and down the top. All right? So here's another tip while you're fitting the wingtips to the wing. I don't know if I talked about this in another video or not, but again, there's the flange of the wingtip fits underneath the wing skin, and of course there's a wing rib right here that is vertical. When you trim back the flange of the wingtip, when you start fitting the tip to the wing, you want to make sure that the flange of the tip is not jammed up against that rib that's in here. And a good way to verify that is just to push on it. If you got a cleco or two in place, if you can push down on the tip and you'll be able to feel it if it's jammed up against the rib. It won't want to move. You'll feel it kind of dragging on that inboard rib. And you can see here that this one is not interfering with the rib anywhere. So that's good. It's trimmed just enough that it's not jammed against the rib, but it's wide enough that I'm going to have good edge distance when I drill these holes. So I've got the top of the tip now fully clecoed. And now I'm going to start match drilling this bottom part and getting this fitted. So I'll do that next. I'll talk to you guys later.